Oi, Susan, you fancy on going down to the pitch and playing some footy? Gonna watch the sun and the lassie? No? Susan, at least you got some fish and chippers ready. Oh, no, George. I want to watch the Sports Pod do their Premier League predictions. Oi, me too. Sports Pod Premier League predictions starts now. Alright, Max, want to do the introduction?
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, if you have clicked on this video to see our predictions, you should be ready for some terrible predictions. We live in America, we've only been watching the Premier League for 1 year, but stay on because you might be here for some interesting takes. So we're going to start from 20 and go to 1, so here's my number 20. Pretty simple pick, I got Luton Town. I'm sorry, everyone's trying to back them, I love them, I want to see them do well, but I do not believe in them. I have them at my number 20 pick. They haven't done much in the transfer market, don't have enough money. They have a great stadium, but nothing much going for them.
Can't believe you don't believe in the Luton Town Looters. They're just incredible. The Hatters, as they're called,
You think they should be higher?
I mean, I'm not revealing my predictions,
Not
but
revealing it?
they're not in 20 for me. I've got Bournemouth. Personally, I thought that they should have gotten relegated last year. They did have the second worst goal differential in the Premier League, with only Southampton's being worse. A lot of their advanced metrics, not great. And of course, as it's known, they didn't have that many additions this previous year in the off season, so they're not really going to be looking better with some of these other teams, improving. I see Bournemouth getting relegated for sure, and I personally have them in 20th. I could see going different places, 18th, 19th, but I see them in last place this year.
Bournemouth at 20th is a very interesting take, especially with their goal differential last year. I think it's a good one, but you never know because, every season changes.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to see them be higher just because I feel like they got a good attacking squad, but everyone doesn't like them this year, so we'll see how it goes. Moving on to 19th now. This one I have to think about a little bit more because, I don't just want to go straight for everyone that got promoted, but I'm going to have to. Sheffield United at 19th. I wasn't too impressed with their campaign run in the Championship League, but they did well. They haven't done much in the transfer market, but I think they'll be a fun team to watch, just because they're like one that has been known to be in the Premier League before, and they have some type of rivalry in there. But there's nothing new, and I think that it's just going to be a 19th straight back down to the Championship League.
Yep. It's time for some agreement. I actually do also have Sheffield United.
Really?
In 19th. The Blades are going to get cut down from the Premier League right there. They're going to be in 19th. I do believe I have in my data that the team has been known to bounce up and down from the Premier League back down to the Championship, that they've made like 4 appearances before this one since 2000. I believe they've been relegated in the first year 3 of the 4 times, and the other one they were just up for 2 years. So the Blades are going to go back down. They're a scrappy team, but I do see them getting relegated.
That's interesting, I did not know that about Sheffield United, and that's a good statistic to know because if they're just going up and bouncing back down, they're not doing much.
Like Norwich.
Oh, really? Yeah. Exactly like Norwich.
Those teams.
Okay, I gotta find who did. Okay, so I eliminated Luton. All right. So 2 down. We're on to our last relegated team prediction. Who do we think is gonna get screwed out of this?
I don't know.
But you two know because you've already made your predictions.
I have. I don't know what's actually gonna happen.
That's true.
No one knows.
Ladies and gents, I'm on the fly. I've not thought about exactly which place I put each team, but this one is one that I was rooting for last year. I was hoping they get 18th, and they completely saved themselves right at the end. Everton, you're going down. A team that is known for staying into Premier League, has never been relegated, but this is their year. That's going to happen. They didn't do much. The only thing keeping them up is their keeper. But you know what? We'll see what happens this year. I think, last year, what goal differential did they have? They, negative 23, only scored 34 goals. That's not a recipe for winning. What did save them, it looks like, is 12 draws. Now, that's impressive. Getting 12 draws, that's telling you that you're doing well enough to stay up. But I don't think they're going to do it this year. Everton, 18th.
One thing that I do want to talk about that I might bring up is the draws that Max has mentioned right here. I believe in draw regression, essentially. If you have a lot of draws, you get another point. Basically, you get another point. If you have 3 draws, or we'll just say 2 draws, and they move into 1 win and 1 loss, that's an extra point in the table.
True. That's true.
So if you have a lot of draws, that could technically mean that you're bound for some more points next year because your team, just it's kind of middling. You have a lot of draws. You don't go that aggressive. We'll see. But Everton, not in my relegation zone.
Oh.
Might not see them for a little bit. In 18th, I have Nottingham Forest.
Really?
Actually, the trees there in Forest are getting bumped down to the championship. Their star, Chris Wood, was injured most of last year and then managed to still avoid relegation. They were in 16th right there, though. But unfortunately, I looked into this a little bit. The teams that didn't do well in the second half of the season, and Forest especially, struggled down the stretch. They were towards the middle of the table. They almost fell to the relegation zone, finishing in 16th, which I think a lot of what went on in the second half of last year, they didn't really bring in any big additions. A lot of that will continue. Forest, I believe, will get relegated in 18th place.
Interesting. That I was not expecting that out of you. Forest is a team that I love to watch. I hope you like to watch them too, but I would not like to see them go down. I enjoyed watching them. Now moving on to 17th, the team that gets saved right at the end usually is a Leeds, but Leeds is no longer in the Premier League, so we're going to have to switch this around. It was Everton last year, but I got them relegated. This one is an interesting one. A team that is generally average, but what I have seen, they have gotten rid of so many players this year, including Ruben Neves to Al Hilal for $47 million. That might help out their market for next year, though. I'm not impressed with them losing all their players. Wolves, you're getting saved this year, but you're going to be a disappointment. 17th place, I got Wolves. I hope that's a hot take. It might not be.
It kind of is. Wolves and Everton both. I've got them at least a couple places higher than where Max has put them right here. It's time for my first hot take. The team that the betting markets favors to get relegated the most. The betting markets say that Luton Town, Sheffield, and Bournemouth are the 3 most likely. If you're looking at Sky Sports, like all those English bettors are. But I've got Luton Town at 17th. They had a ton of draws in the championship, and they still got 3rd. They were a very good defensive team. They were 2nd in goals allowed, just barely behind Burnley in the championship. They do have their star, Carlton Morris, just incredible. Didn't play the full season, but still scored 20 goals down in the championship. And finally, I've just got their stadium factor, their fan factor. They haven't been in the Premier League, haven't been that high, forever. The team almost moved towns back at some point to Milton Keynes or whatever, which sounds like the name of a grandpa. But anyway, I've got Luton. Their environment is going to be crazy. I'm going to really want to see, Holland walk through a back garden to get onto the pitch. It's going to be incredible. I think Luton Town, they've practically got a little bit of a magical feel to them. They don't need to have a winning record, which they just need to do just enough really with their home games, manage a couple of draws, a couple wins, and Luton can advance. I'm rooting for it. This might not be, fully logical. Would have had them relegated and Forest staying up if it was fully logical. I got to speak with the heart a little bit. Luton Town staying up 17th.
I think Luton is a team that everybody wants to stay up, but doesn't really believe in it. But, Sam, you've given them a chance, so at least there's some hope left. Moving on to 16. This one is kind of a no-brainer. Sam talking about the relegation odds, gotta put Bournemouth down. They weren't that impressive last year, 2nd to last in goal differential, but 11 wins was kind of impressive for the team that they had, but 16th is where I feel like is the perfect spot for them. Not a good season, but good enough to stay in.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 16th definitely could work for them. They're towards the bottom. We'll see. I've got another team that I feel just they've kind of been skirting, middle of the pack towards bottom of the pack recently. I've got Crystal Palace. Their gaffer, as the managers are so called, as I've recently learned, is a 76-year-old Roy Hodgson. You know, he's got some old tactics, and they did not score a ton of goals last year compared to where they were. You know, I don't have the exact date on it, but their offense has been known to be a bit of an issue, as my notes say. The Eagles from Palace, I've got in 16th, just avoiding relegation.
It's a smart pick, especially with Zaha leaving that team. He was basically a core player, but he's gone now. So that tempts me to put them at 15th, but I won't, because there's another team that I have a hot take about, and that one is Brentford. Brentford, you know, they had a very good season last year, but they relied upon one player, and that was Ivan Toney. And after being suspended for the classic NFL 1-year suspension gambling, he is out until January or February, I think. So I think
in the notes.
I think Brentford is going to have a really bad season until Ivan Toney comes back, and they're going to climb back up to 15th, is where I feel like they'll make it back up to. But this one, I'd be even more happy about being right than the Bournemouth one, or which one did I say was a hot take?
Everton.
Wolves. It was Wolves. I'd rather this one be right than Wolves, just because I feel like that'd be pretty cool. But I think that's exactly what will happen. A bad season until Ivan Toney comes back, and then they'll be chilling.
Okay. Very interesting. In 15th, maybe this is a bit of a cultural note for any Brits that come in. Why do so many of your teams have ham in it? It's got a... can't translate to something it is English, but like Fulham, Nottingham, you know, Tottenham, West Ham. Maybe I said them already, but like Wolverhampton. I don't know.
That's actually true.
There's
I never thought about that.
a lot of ham in the Premier League.
Southampton.
You know, relegate. You know, we could go through like even the city Birmingham. You know, I don't know.
Birmingham City.
Yeah, I really don't know why there's so much ham. But anyway, I was just thinking about that because I'm not really hungry. But you know, I just saw it. We've got a full ham coming in at 15th place.
Oh.
I've got Fulham. You know, Alexander Mitrovic is their star, as I'm told, for the Cottagers. And, of course, he's got a bit of a temper. The big suspension for shoving a ref last year.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a little volatile to just have all your offense in one guy who's, you know, I don't know, a bit of a question mark, kind of like the Cleveland Browns with Deshaun Watson. No, our overlap with the NFL and the Premier League might not be huge, but it's a question mark. Fulham, I believe they were in 10th last year.
They were.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I see them going down a little bit lower. Got them in 15th this year.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would argue that having someone that's angry up top is actually beneficial. But
could see that.
You never know. Being a little too angry can sometimes be hurting your team. Now, going to move on to 14th. This one is interesting. I really want to say West Ham because last year they were 14th and they lost Rice. But I feel like gaining that money out of Rice is actually going to be beneficial to West Ham, so I'm not going to pick them. I am going to go for Forest. Forest, Sam had them in the relegation zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
They finished 16th last year. Actually, we're solid with 9 wins and 11 draws, but 18 losses. They did gain Alonga from Man United, but lost Lingard. But I think that's a win. I got them at 14th.
Okay. And 14th for me, I have the Clarets, Burnley, which we both haven't mentioned so far, despite having been in the championship last year.
Mm-hmm.
They were real impressive. They were 10 points clear of Sheffield, who was in second. They had a plus 52 goal differential. They led the championship in both goals and goals allowed. You know, if their numbers from the championship were in the Premier League, it would have been second in goal differential, second in goals, just behind Man City. They're a great team, and you know, they did bring in, you know, not that much, but they brought in an addition or two to really help the team out. But I think their team last year could have done quite well in the Premier League. I think Burnley set up to at least have a couple of years of a run here in the Prem, as the Brits call it. So I've got Burnley in 14th.
That's a very good take. In fact, because I'm actually going to put them in 13th. As Sam talked about, they did bring in a couple pieces. For example, Trafford from Man City, who's pretty young, and that could help out their team if he stays there for a while. I don't know Burnley too well. They might have had a good transfer market, might not have. I don't know who their good players were, but I was impressed with their campaign last year, and that's why I'm putting them at 13th. A little bit of a Brentford from last year, because Brentford's one of those teams that used to be in the championship and was always good in the championship, and then when they turned into the Prem, they turned it into success. So that's why I'm thinking that they're going to do this year.
Okay, then in 13th, I do have the team that was making me hungry earlier when Max was talking about ham and rice for half the time. West Ham, they did lose Declan Rice, their best player, but so other players will have to step up. The only other note that I have is that they visited Australia this summer, which, fun for them. A lot of teams go on their friendly tours, but West Ham went down to Australia, so we'll see. Maybe that'll pay off for them, but they were in 14th last year. I see them fairly similar with the one loss of Declan Rice, but really, compared to the other teams, I think they'll stick around the same spot. I've got them in 13.
That's an interesting pick. I wanted to put West Ham low, like I said earlier. I think 13th is a perfect spot for them, but I cannot put them there because I had, obviously, Burnley, which I forgot to cross off. Now, moving on to 12th, I've got Palace. This is finally time to put Palace in their spot for losing Zaha. They are a good team. They're consistently average, but I think that was because they had Zaha, and without Zaha, they're just below average now, so they're at 12th for me.
Fair. Time for a team that Max and I have disagreed on a lot. If you're following along with the rankings on the sides here, you'll probably have noticed these two teams. First and 12th, I have Everton. I believe that the Toffees will make it all the way up to 12th this year. Jordan Pickford and co. They have had a lot of talent on the squad. So many managers coming through the building. I believe Goodison Park, I think that's their name. They're getting a new stadium soon here. So many managers. I believe I saw a fact that they had 12 over the last 10 years in terms of managers.
That's
which
awful.
Is terrible. Guess what? They've stayed up in the Premier League this whole time. I'm just looking at the talent on the roster, think that they're finally going to get something done. They were hovering around the relegation zone, but at the end of the year, they were able to have a little bit of a push to get them out. I think that's going to give them a little momentum coming into the season to get a little bit higher up the table. In the end, they had 36 points, which was only 5 away from 13th. It's not much of a stretch to see them getting up the table a little bit. I've got them in 12th this year.
That's a good pick, and this leads to one of my... I'm transferring because I'm now putting West Ham at 11th. That's the last team where I'm unconfident in their ability to make a top 10 finish. So that's why I have them there. Losing Rice, someone who's just a core player in the midfield, it's just basically their foundation. And now that he's gone, I don't know what they're going to do with their money, but hopefully with some good things. Although West Ham is a good team and they have some good owners that I feel like will figure things out for West Ham. So I got them at 11th. Plus they're coming off of that win in the, 7th place.
Oh yeah, the Europa Conference League.
Europa Conference League, they won that. So now they're going to be in the Europa League, which will make them tired, which now makes me think my place might be wrong, but I'm going to stick with it.
Who knows? Then 11th, I've got another big disagreement. I've got the Wolverhampton Wolves, the Wanderers, whatever they're called.
That high.
Guess what? Wolves like being in the midst of a pack. 11th is the middle of the pack. I'm making a Wolves pun right there, but I don't care. Last year, they did have the fewest goals scored, which, they're due.
Did they actually?
Yeah, I believe so. Out of
30.
every team in the Premier League, the fewest goals scored.
That's true.
Less than 1 a game. I've got the Wolves getting a little bit of some positive momentum coming into this year. They do have some young players. They let some of their older veterans go. But they've got some young talent who should be able to manufacture some more goals this year. Still got a decent defense. I've got the Wolves in 11th. I could see them being a lot lower. At some point, I just saw a top 10 or a top 9 that I agreed on. I think Max and I probably will agree on who the top 9 teams are. But there's kind of a bit of a cutoff in there. But I chose the Wolves for 11th.
That's a good pick, I think. They could be anywhere. Like I said, they're usually an average team, but I feel like this is their year that's playing it a little bit less safe, but safer in a way because they usually make it. I am going to go with Fulham. I think we're transferring to what Sam says. We're pretty much agreeing on the top 9. But I got Fulham at 10th, just where they were at last year. I was really impressed with them last season. I didn't even know that they were promoted last season because I didn't pay attention before that year. But if someone would have told me that, I would have been really surprised because they looked in form. I was really impressed with their defense, especially having two Americans that I really didn't think were like Prem level, but they showed what they could do. And, 10th spot, I feel like that's another good place for them to be at this year.
With Max saying that, it did confirm to me that we will have the same top 9 teams, which 9 might be where we start to disagree a little bit more with at the top. In 10th, I have a fellow London club to Fulham. I've got Brentford. The Bees had a really good year last year in 9th, surprising a lot of people. And even with the 9th place performance, they had the 7th best goal differential, and they had 14 draws, which was towards the top of the league. A fewer draws, with some better luck with goal differential, they could do better. Of course, Ivan Toney, due to his gambling suspension, free my boy. He is suspended. I got that he had an 8-month suspension. I don't know exactly when that started. He should come back sometime towards the end of the season. We'll see for the Brentford Bees what they do. I know you don't do your little teams with nicknames like that, like the Minnesota Vikings in the Premier League, but I like calling teams that, they're the Brentford Bees, they're the Everton Toffees, they're the West Ham Hammers, whatever.
Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, some people actually say that though, so I don't know.
That's
whatever.
True.
I've got Brentford in 10th.
All right, top 9. We're starting to get a little controversial, right? Because these are the teams that are actually contending. I am going to go with a take that I feel like a lot of people are shying away from, but they had a terrible performance last year. Chelsea is my 9th team. I think a lot of people think they're going to be top 5 this year, which I don't know exactly why. They've sold every player away. For example, Havertz, Kovacic, Loftus-Cheek, Mount, Pulisic, Conte, etc. Those are all key players that they just got rid of, especially Mount and Havertz. I feel like those were like their offensive pieces. And I guess they could do a lot with that money. However, this is what's going to make a difference between their 12th place and their 9th place this year. They got Nkunku. I really like this guy. I had him in DLS, but if you know, you know. Nkunku is amazing. I watched some highlights of him at Red Bull, and honestly, I think he's going to be a game changer. He's going to be the scorer that they needed, but he's their only attacking piece that I like, and that's why they're at 9th. Kind of Brentford in a way.
In 9th place, I've got these guys. I've got Tottenham. Max's squad there in the Prem. I just don't see them doing great. They got 8th last year. I just feel they've got a lot of aging players that they're relying on, kind of like the New Orleans Saints in the NFL. And their biggest addition was a guy named James Madison, which, if you know anything about American history, was the 4th president, War of 1812, which of course was a draw with you Brits. You have to defend, but he was a founding father during the Revolutionary War, where you guys lost a 13-colony lead. So I'm intrigued to see what James Madison can do. He was, I believe, in the Premier League somewhere last year. I don't know. Max probably knows that. It might be over there. But,
He was in Leicester.
Leicester? Oh, yeah. Guess what? Leicester is now Leicester the Premier League. I don't know. That joke doesn't make a lot of sense. But anyway, I do have Tottenham in 9th. Only a little bit to antagonize Max.
That hurts. And you know what? I will say I've watched some YouTube videos. A lot of people don't even have them top 10. They're calling them the disappointment this year, which is hurting my soul. But you know what? I've got them higher than 9th. That's why I'm not putting them at 8th either. I got Brighton there. Sold one of their best players, McAllister, over to Liverpool, which is a great addition for Liverpool. And they did get Milner and some other players, but I don't feel like that's a good enough replacement for McAllister. I feel like they're going to be just as good as they were last year, but just not as, surprising. So an 8th finish, a respectable one, but not anything to get any European play.
Okay. I actually have a hot take in 8th place for who's not getting any European play. The Newcastle Magpies.
Interesting.
I don't see Newcastle repeating their surprise fourth place finish. As Max kind of alluded to earlier, Newcastle is one of those teams. They're going to have to play a lot of games against tough European competition. It's going to wear down their team. Their team is kind of on the older side with Kieran Trippier and Callum Wilson as their two biggest goal scorers.
They are
biggest players, and they're getting older. They have to play a lot of games in the Champions League. They are Saudi owned now, so the team's got some deeper pockets, but they didn't make any huge splashes in the transfer portal.
No.
They don't call it the transfer portal, but whatever. Transfer market. Sorry, I'm confusing terms over here. But, yep. So, basically, I see Newcastle decreasing a little bit from fourth. I don't see them getting top four this year. I could see them getting, fifth or sixth, but I personally have them in eighth.
Man, I really thought we were going to disagree more because I wanted to have some disagreements. But looking over, my hot take is still not on his board, which makes me think that his hot take is going to be my hot take, which is making me sad.
Oh, no.
But, okay. Moving on, I'm going to have to be an honest fan. It's time. Tottenham, you either are losing Kane this year or next year. And if you don't lose Kane this year, we just lost out on a whole lot of money. So, honestly, I do want Kane out this year. And from what I saw last year, our defense is not good enough to be anything in top six. So I got us at seventh. Giving up 63 goals last year, terrible. I know we added a goalkeeper, which is good, but I'm still not impressed with our center backs. And it just needs to be better for our team. I'm a little sad saying this, but it's got to be better.
Okay. In seventh, I've got the team that sees a lot of goals. The Seagulls of Brighton. They were fourth in goals last year. Really a bit of a unique style. I don't watch a ton of Premier League games, but Brighton was fun to watch on the field. They're a little unique, attacking a lot, just kind of, fun stuff with their manager, unique style out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of see them doing about what they did last year. They were sixth last year. I've got them hanging around that space. Didn't have a ton of draws. A few more could kind of hurt them a little bit. But I've got them in seventh. I think they'll be around there. So Brighton, seventh place.
But Brighton, for being seventh after being a team that just wasn't ever there, that's still a good result, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Moving on to sixth now. Again, we might have the same top five. We might not. I'm not looking over because I don't want to see. I am putting Newcastle, which I know, hot take for a lot of people. Right? Newcastle, they should be top five, especially after what they did last year. Only losing St. Maximin and adding Barnes and Tonali. Those are just great pieces to add. Just will they put it together? We will find out, but I don't think it will. So, sixth place. You made Europa League, but nothing impressive.
Then in sixth place, I think this is kind of the hot take that Max was alluding to. Don't have that high. I do have the villains of Aston Villa.
Aston Villa.
When I was looking just at the teams that finished hot last year, Aston Villa was the team that by far was the hottest to finish the year. They were in seventh place. They had the second most ties, which could, if they don't have as many of the ties, that'll help them out a little bit more. And then their new manager, Unai Emery, I might not even be saying that right, but he guided the team. He turned them around a lot. They kind of changed their tactics a lot, and they used their talent to be basically kind of where their talent was supposed to be. But really, Aston Villa finished the year very well. And Ollie Watkins, my dark horse pick to win the Golden Boot this year. We'll see. I personally got him top three. He might have a hard time competing with Holland or Kane.
Yeah.
But Ollie Watkins, dark horse pick. We'll see. Aston Villa, sixth place.
And that transfers into my fifth pick, also Aston Villa. Just a really impressive year last year, especially coming 14th in the year before. What did they have? They had +5 goal differential. They might need to improve on their attacking pieces. But as Sam said, Ollie Watkins, he's a pretty solid player, and he was missing a lot of close ones last year that he could have scored, which could have boosted up that score. It seems like they're the only team in the top 8 to have less than 60 goals, which is not too good, but that's well, I guess Man United did. But anyway, I feel like they're gonna have a very impressive year, making Europa League this time. I'm hoping for a good year for the villains.
Yep. Speak of the devil, the Red Devils, Manchester United. I've got them in fifth.
Fifth,
Add 2 letters onto Man U.
not making
Ari, you
champions.
get manure. Manchester
Ooh.
United dropping down like poop. I don't know. I just thought of that joke, but I should make it. Anyway, yeah, the Red Devils did have the second fewest draws. They're due for a little regression in that. I saw there was a bit of a news story that the manager, he stripped Harry Maguire's captaincy, which, poor mistake there from my guy, Ten Hag or whatever.
That's a great choice.
I don't know. It's a poor move in the locker room, just saying, this guy's our captain, this guy's our leader, then just saying in the middle of the offseason, no more, you know? He's losing the locker room. I do think Man United, they didn't have a ton of goals last year. Their goal differential wasn't great compared to other teams like Newcastle, Liverpool, Brighton. They all had better goal differentials.
Looks
I
like
see Man United just dropping down a little bit. They do have to play Champions League ball again this year. So I've got them in 5th place.
it's a good spot to have them at. But not making Champions League, that's surprising out of Man United, especially for the start that they had last year and then turning it around. They've even added Mount, right? Yeah, Mount and Onana, and got rid of De Gea, which I feel like is just wins all across the board. But my 4th place pick, what am I going to do here? I'm choosing between 2, and you know what? It will have to be Man United. I know they've had a bad off season, or what I mean by that is like preseason games. I don't know what they call it. They haven't been that impressive. Their second team lost to Wrexham, so that's just terrible. So honestly, I guess it's their second team, yeah. But if Rashford can repeat the year that they had last year, maybe they'll have a chance of being top 3. But I feel like 4th is a respectable place, and that's where they'll be at. I like Man United, but they are not good enough to win this year's championship.
Okay. Max and I will have the same top 3, but our number 4 team, very different. I've got Chelsea. Chelsea. Yes. I know they're a bit of a polarizing pick in the Premier League circles this year, whether they're going to repeat their poor form of last year in 12th. And, of course, they did lose a lot of guys, but I feel it's almost going to be like some addition by subtraction. You know, they just had so many guys fighting for playing time. Like LeBron James of soccer barely got any playing time on Chelsea. They just couldn't figure out how to use all their pieces correctly. They have lost Christian Pulisic, obviously the GOAT of the Premier League. But unfortunately for Chelsea, they did have a ton of injuries last year, kind of like the San Francisco 49ers in the NFL like 3 years ago. I expect the next year them to come out strong. You know, they're going to focus a little bit more on what their tactics are actually going to be. They're going to have healthy pieces. They did add Nkunku and Nicholas Jackson, 2 more forwards, which were kind of a bit of a struggle who was going to be their attackers. So despite losing to LeBron James of soccer, I think the Blues will not be blue this year with a 4th place finish.
Will not be blue. Well, here's the thing. That joke would be good if Champions League was not blue, which means they will be blue this year if you put them in 4th. So
Different shade, whatever.
Yeah, you know what? Whatever. Moving on. I looked over. I shouldn't have, but I don't want to agree on the top 3. If I was smart, I would put Arsenal here. But since I saw something, I shouldn't have said that.
I didn't put the pen to
I'm
block
gonna put Liverpool at 3rd. I didn't want to, but you know what? They had to restructure their midfield this year. It's gonna take a little bit of time to figure it out. That's why I got them at 3rd.
Okay, so I have Arsenal at 3rd. Not for a lot of reasons, but I think that Liverpool and Man City will both be better than them this year. The Gunners did slow down at the end. They kind of gunned it out of the start, and towards the end of the year, they were kind of slipping a little bit, not in as great of the form. They did spend a lot on some additions with Rice and Havertz, so they'll probably be a little bit better than we saw them at the end of the year. I think that Man City and Liverpool are just slightly better.
I would. Man, do I want to? I want to say I would agree, but do I want to make a defining take?
I don't
That
know.
could. Do I or do I not want to put Man City at 1? Arsenal definitely won the transfer market compared to Man City this year. Man City lost Gundogan and Riyad Mahrez, whereas Arsenal gained Kai Havertz, Declan Rice, and Jurrien Timber. 3 great players. That could change their team completely. Is it enough? There was only a 5-point difference last year. But usually the person in first place gets 90 points. And I feel like Man City will do that again. So at first place, I got Man City, and at second, I got Arsenal.
Yep, Max was leading us on there. In second place, I do have Liverpool. In first place, I do have Man City. I expect Man City in the future here. They should get some penalties for their financial fair play allegations. There's sneaky stuff going on, but that's not happening yet. They've still got such a deep squad. I expect them to be in first. Then Liverpool is the team I will expect to challenge them the most. They don't have to play Champions League games a lot, which I think makes a big difference.
That could
They
help
did
them.
add McAllister. We'll see if he can really help the team to get above their 5th place finish last year. I think they were in better form. They were kind of almost outside the top 10 for a little bit of the year, I think. They're kind of hovering around 10. Then towards the end of the year, they moved up to 5. They do have the Europa League, which fun, but we'll see. I got Man City 1 and Liverpool 2.
There's our predictions, guys. Write them down in the comments below. I know you'll roast us as always, but we'll see how it goes.
Yep.
Peace.